When we think about AI as a way to automate tasks, we're missing out on all the second and third order effects because a lot of our work today is built around the assumption that knowledge cannot be standardized, knowledge cannot be commoditized, and it all sits inside our head, it's tacit. And the more we see improvements in AI, the impact that I believe is important is not that tasks are getting automated and whether AI is good or whether humans need to be part of it. What's the effect that's really happening is that knowledge is increasingly, or the application of knowledge work is increasingly getting commoditized, more easily available in new formats, in new parts of the economy, and that will change how the economy works rather than simply automation.
Absolutely. And one or two of the components of what you mentioned it's really big is we're all looking at our belly button, not understanding that the human shape is changing, but we basically say, look, our belly buttons become bigger or smaller, which is not what it is. But there are a couple of examples that I sort of stayed and share with people. One is that in some ways, in the first computing age, the cost of compute came close to zero, which is it's now 10 million times cheaper to, per transistor today than it was 40 years ago. The internet made the cost of distribution in certain areas go to zero. And as you say, the AI age is going to make the cost of knowledge go to zero. And most of us are knowledge and white collar workers. The other day I came up with another example, and I thought about you because I know the first couple of elements of this you did not use because you thought this was bigger. But I was actually speaking to a colleague of mine, and I said, if you think about it, some of the big inventions of the world are fire, the printing press, electricity, and the internet before AI. And you could say those are four of the really big ones. So I said, what fire did is it allowed us to cook food, which allowed us to make our brains bigger. The printing press allowed us to communicate with more people through our brains, right? Electricity allowed our brains to manipulate the world around us. And the internet basically put this connection on steroids. What AI is doing is it's basically not affecting our brain, it's a new brain. And that's the significant part. It's not taking the current brain and making it better. It's a completely new brain, which either augments, replaces, or enhances us. So that shift, I think, is particularly interesting. And I thought about that again from, the future does not fit in the containers of the past. Another line I have, the future does not fit in the mindsets of the past. And this might be the future does not fit in our minds, which is probably also one of the reasons, as Clive mentioned, businesses, marketers are sort of struggling. So when they are, one of the key things that you often have said, which I completely agree with, is a company does not require an AI strategy, right? However, a company needs to answer 2 or 3 different questions. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the metaphor of an expanding brain and now going beyond the brain, I think it's rather interesting because if we think of the brain as a mechanism for sensing and sense making, it does not sit in our heads. When we sit around a table, the brain is at the table, right? When we're connected over a chat with 20 other people, the brain is in the chat. So that idea of sensing and sense making is constantly happening beyond the boundaries of our head. And if you were to bring in a few more, you don't have to think about, are these beings conscious or not? But if you bring in a few more elements through which that collective sensing and sense making happens, we're not shifting a paradigm completely. That paradigm has existed. It's just who gets access to which kinds of capabilities to do that sensing and sense making change, and where that can happen. All of that changes, right? And who gets to sit at which tables, those things change. And that's again the idea of a reshuffle. So I fully, I'm on board with where you were going with that.